Hello, and welcome to another knee-jerk video review. I watch a movie and then I review it as soon as I get done, so I don't have time to think about it. There might be spoilers. I try not to do spoilers, but if you absolutely positively can't do spoilers, let me know. Oops, and well, don't let me know. Just stop watching the video. I just finished watching finally after all this time Star Wars. Um, I forgot the name of the movie. Anyway, Rogue One. I, Sorry, I'm drawing a blank, but this is like live YouTube, so I can't help it. But anyway, I watched Rogue One and really liked the movie. This will be a really positive review. I only had one criticism. I make you wait till the end to hear it. But you see, the thing is, I think I am the target demographic for this movie. I think I am just exactly who they're hoping will buy a ticket. Because I was one of those people that grew up, I saw Star Wars Episode 4 in the theater. I don't care what anybody says. I've said this before. People think I'm remembering it wrong. But whenever I sit in the theater and the scroll comes up, it says Star Wars Episode 4. And then it starts talking, the scroll about how, they obtained plans to the Death Star and stuff. And I remember people in the theater going, huh? There was an audible gasp in the theater because it was a packed theater and everyone went, huh? At the same time. So it was very audible. Yes, Episode 4 was in the theaters. It came out that way and everyone was like, I remember walking out and I can hear conversations around me going, why did it start with Episode 4? Does that mean they're going to make prequels? It was just one of those things back in the day. So, no, people were like, no, definitely that wasn't in the theaters. Yes, it was. I'm here to tell you that. But anyway, I watched Star Wars in the theater, and people today and kids today just have no idea how this movie blew us away. Because, it was just a humdrum, damsel in distress, hero saving the day type of movie, but it was set in this world that was so futuristic, but so lived in. And, if you look at other science fiction of the time, you got these spaceships that are full of monitors and clean chrome and everything. But Star Wars, the world of Star Wars looked lived in. It looked rusty. It was worn out. It, used props that just looked like, like on the farm. You felt like you were on a farm, but in the future. But it wasn't just that, but the special effects were so good. And you may look at them today and think, oh, that's nothing. But it was. I mean, back in 1979, that blew us away. And then, we couldn't wait for Part 5 and Part 6. And we just loved it. And then it was like that big, long break. And then, Parts 1, 2, and 3. But anyway, these were movies that blew us away. And it kind of revolutionized the way we saw movies. It really did. And people born today and growing up today, seeing the type of movies that are today, just have no idea what that was like. So I think this movie was really meant for like my type of demographic, because I understand that this movie, when you watch the crawl in Episode 4, that's what this movie is. It's everything that was in that crawl. Excuse me. And I'd have to go back and read the crawl. I didn't do that to see how well that was, but that's what I was told. And the other thing is, this movie really took us back to Star Wars. The original Star Wars, just, it had the same look, the same feel. And I understand they wanted more practical special effects to make it feel that way. And I've heard criticisms that there was bad CGI in this movie, but the only time I could really spot CGI is because I was thinking about it. At the end with Princess Leia, it did look kind of, what do they call it, the uncanny valley. She kind of had this uncanny valleyness about her. But the main guy, I can't even think of his name. And again, I'd have to watch the movie 20 times to know all their names. But the main general guy, Peter, I don't know, I can't think of his name. But the old guy, I understand that he was CGI, but I really couldn't spot it unless I was really, really looking at it. So if you're just sitting there enjoying the movie, don't worry about, oh, I heard this is bad CGI. And you probably already seen the movie anyway, but I didn't think it was that bad. In fact, unnoticeable. And the CGI, because obviously there were creatures. There's a big octopus creature, and then another octopus creature sleeping in a bunk, and things like this. If that, obviously that must have been CGI, but you couldn't tell. I mean, that looked real, like that was a real creature laying there. So I mean, this is just what I just love about this movie, and everything looked worn and lived in, just like the original Star Wars, and it was claustrophobic too. And oh god, I don't even know where to start. But it did make you feel like this was the world of the Imperial galaxy, because every scene, everywhere they went, were stormtroopers. They were in the crowds. They were in the background. They were pushing people around. They were bullies, and you really got the sense of, hey, this is oppression under the Imperial government, and everywhere they went, everyone was afraid of the stormtroopers, and it's just, I heard they based it on Nazi Germany, and just they actually took pictures from World War II and then based their scenes on that. If they did whatever they did, it was pretty good, and you just got the feeling, yeah, this is oppression. This is everything. Just felt like you were being crunched under this imperial government, and you could just feel the pressure. And I love that. I mean, that made the movie believable for me. And special effects. This is one of those movies. I gotta digress a little bit because I'm going to talk about the Croods. Now, the Croods, it was very undersold. I mean, I didn't even realize it was a movie till I went to the theater and I thought, oh, I'll see this Crood movie. The Croods was a movie about cavemen, and they created this fantastical, gorgeous world. And if I ever review the Croods, I'll give it all my thumbs up. But it wasn't just cavemen and dinosaurs. Every creature was a created creature. They had piranha birds and whale, land whales, and just these really fantastical creatures. But I saw it in the theater with 3D glasses, and there's a scene where the world's coming to the end, and you can see these mountains like crumbling, and it goes all the way as far as your eye can see in both directions, and they're crumbling, and there's clouds bursting up, and it just took my breath away. And years later when I saw it on DVD, it was like, I love this scene, but it just doesn't take my breath away the way it did in the theater. Because in the theater, you got the big screen and it's 3D, and there's like, you can just feel the mountains crumble and the smoke coming up, and it was just the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen. And in this movie, there's a scene similar to that where the crust of the planet is like being uplifted, and it's curling back, and I could just tell that if I had seen this in 3D in the theaters, this must have been the most gorgeous scene ever. And just even on my big TV, you could just see the crust peeling up, and the sounds, and how slow it was moving, and just raw power lifting the earth. And oh, that must have been gorgeous in the theaters, and I wish I would have saw it in the theaters. But yeah, very powerful imagery, and just a sense of breathing when they were out of there, and it's just like, my God, what was that? And they realized that here this Death Star is an awesome weapon that can lift the crust up off a planet, and it's just things like that, and it was just well done. And I don't care what anyone says. I didn't see any CGI. It looked real, and the robots looked real. I love robots anyway, but the robot really stole the show, and he barely was in every scene he was in. He stole the scene. But the characters, the main character, he's supposed to be the good guy, but he's got this bad streak, and the woman, and oh, it's just, and the guy who made the Death Star, and how he feels his power being taken away, because now he's done with it, and it felt like the Imperial Army was done with him, and he wanted to hang on to that last bit of power. And the storyline, You couldn't make a better storyline. Everything fit. Everything was paced well. I just love this movie all around, and I love the special effects and the costumes and the aliens and everything I loved about it. I said I had a criticism. I'm sure you're dying to hear the criticism. But thumbs up all the way. I just love this movie. And the criticism I have, and I know you're dying to hear it, it was the same criticism I had of the Ghostbusters. Now, the Ghostbusters, you know, a new cast of characters, female characters, but almost every scene had a cameo. And it just made you feel like you weren't watching a movie about Ghostbusters. You were watching a movie that was made to have these cameos. That's all it felt to me like. It felt like one big commercial to say, here's what the Ghostbusters are doing now, but we're going to wrap it in this female Ghostbuster. That totally took me out of the movie. See, I like to watch a movie and think, I'm in the story, and I'm watching it, and I'm experiencing it, and this movie did that a lot, but then every once in a while, they throw in a cameo. And I understand, you know, this movie did take place. You know, this is the movie that leads right up to episode 4. I mean, literally right up to, you know, the last scene in this movie is the first scene in that movie. And they did a good job of blending that together, way better than they did with trying to make 1, 2, and 3 fit with 4, 5, and 6. This movie just fit perfectly. So I understand and you know, when Darth Vader was on, that made sense because Darth Vader, you know, this was his project to make this Death Star, and, you know, naturally he was going to be involved in it. But again, when someone appears in one scene and nowhere else, it feels like a cameo, and it just feels like, oh, I just saw a cameo. And there was a couple of these. You know, there was the bully from the cantina was, you know, had some lines, and it just was like, oh, they're just making this a cameo. You know, they could have done away with that. And of course, R2-D2 and C-3PO had to be in it. And they tried to make it logical and fit, but still, it was just like, oh, they're just forcing this cameo. And of course, the last one, of course, you know, like I said, this movie butts right up against the other movie. And so naturally, you know, the other movie starts out with Princess Leia with the plans to the Death Star, you know, giving them to R2-D2. Well, this movie ends with her getting those plans. And that was the one point, like I said before, that was the one point where I kind of tell it was CGI. Her face kind of had an uncanny valley look to it. But she receives the plan, and then, you know, we all know what happened next. She goes and finds R2 and says, you know, you got to get this to Obi-Wan Kenobi. And, like, you know, you knew this going in. You knew this was Rogue One. You knew this was a story of how they got the Death Star plan. So, but, I mean, I don't even, but that took me out of the movie. And so, like, I'm enjoying it. Oh, cameo. Oh, I'm watching a movie, and then it spoiled that part of the movie for me. Took me, you know, a minute or two to get back into that groove where, hey, I'm in this movie. I'm not saying that about Darth Vader because, you know, he was in a couple different scenes, and it made sense. And one thing I don't understand is he's got the power, you know, the Force. And, like, there's a scene where these people draw blasters on him, and, of course, he yanks his blasters out of their hands using the Force. And there was a lot of that in movies 1, 2, and 3. But the guy with the plans, you know, he slips them to another guy. Why didn't he use the Force to pull those plans back to him? Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe he didn't see it. He didn't realize what the guy was doing. I don't know. But, you know, that was a question I had. I don't know if that's a plot hole or what you call it, but it just seemed like he could have just went whoop and drew, you know, said, hey, that guy's got something. Let me pull that back, and then I'll rip him in half like I did the other guy. And so, but yeah, this movie really shows. I know one of the criticisms of the first, you know, 4, 5, and 6 was, oh, stormtroopers can't shoot nothing, but they really seem like bully people in this movie. Like you just felt the oppression of the imperial government, just because these Star Troopers are everywhere and they're pushing people around and they're pulling their blasters and they're shooting people. And, you know, there's little skirmishes, and yeah, they're killing people, and that you really felt like, okay, these were foot soldiers. And then they also, and this is what made it feel like lived in a real universe. You know, they're dirty. You know, they have that white armor on, but they're always smudged and dirty and covered in dust. And you know, it just felt like this guy had been stationed on this planet for too long, and he wanted to go home because he's just covered in dirt. And you know, but that was the life of a stormtrooper. It did feel more real, like they were a real threat, and they were the bad guy and the villain of the piece. Can't give away the big spoilers if you haven't seen it yet. Again, Robot steals the show. Every scene he was in was just clever, and he had clever lines, and you could really see that personality, and the personality was all the way through the movie. Again, you know, when you see the storage of the, you know, the central storage, like, why would they make a central storage like that, you know? Anyway, I guess different worlds, different times, aliens. I love the sets in this one. You know, they were on a desert planet. It wasn't Tatooine, but they were on a desert planet. They were on, you know, this tropical paradise planet, for lack of a better word. They were on. It was just well put together, and I liked it. From the very first scene, where it's just kind of these people living on a farm, to the very last scene where with the big battle, you know, and the battle going on. Beautiful movie. You know, I may, you know, again, and that's me. I'm sure some people saw this and went, "Oh yeah, that's the guy from the cantina," and we're like, "Oh yeah, there's C-3PO," and you know, I'm surprised I didn't catch a glimpse, and there might be, you know, I'll have to go through the trivia on it, but I'm surprised I didn't catch a glimpse of the Millennial Falcon in there somewhere. It might have been in there somewhere. But anyway, I wholly recommend it. It's on Netflix. That's why I watched it. I'm like, sometimes I'm on Netflix and I spend an hour trying to find a movie. Literally an hour, hour and a half. That's the length of a movie. So sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm flipping through everything. But I turned Netflix on. It was like the very first thing that popped up. And I went, oh, they got RogueOne. Boom, I'm going to watch it. So that's how I watched it. I loved it. I'm going to go. This is definitely a movie I will watch again. And so wholly recommended. 4 lightsabers up out of 4. No reservations. I know I had a few criticisms, but they were so small and insignificant that go see the movie if you haven't already. Good movie to sit down and watch. You know, sometimes I'll say, this is a good movie to play while you're cleaning the kitchen, or this is a good movie to play while you're doing something else. But no, this is a good movie to sit down, have your popcorn and soda, and watch it. And by all means, it'll be, because I know when I'm in the theater, there's a point where, you know, at the end, I'm like, oh, I didn't even eat nothing, you know, because I was watching the movie. You're going to have that feeling with this. So I'm going to wrap it up. Star Wars RogueOne. I don't know if Star Wars is actually in the title, but RogueOne. Great cast, good acting, good storyline, good special effects. Can't say nothing really bad about this movie, so enjoy it on Netflix now. And I'm going to wrap it up and say goodnight.